Welcome. Welcome to the Center for Research on Vermont annual meeting. I'm Richard Watts, the director of the center, and I'm broadcasting live from my house here in Hinesburg, Vermont. And we very much hope you all are doing okay, or as well as you can be in this amazing moment that we're living through. So we are going to have a virtual remote Center for Research on Vermont annual meeting, which has been a fabulous event where we all actually get together in person. Today, we're going to go through some of our awards. Behind the scenes here is Brianna, who will now bring up a PowerPoint that has an agenda and a few things that I want to say about the year at the center. So this is the Center for Research on Vermont's annual meeting, and we are, of course, part of the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Vermont. We will record this event and make it available, and I'll share with you how you can see that later. So, briefly, I want to talk to you about what's been happening with the center over the last year, give you some highlights. It's been a very active year in many, many ways. And then we're going to do what we always do at the Center for Research on Vermont annual meeting. We're going to give out these important student awards that we have. The Andrew E. Newquist Award for Excellence in Student Research, year-long, and the George B. Bryan Award for the Best Student Paper for a semester. The Green Mountain Award, which provides up to $4,000 for a student doing research over the summer. And then the center's top award, the Lifetime Achievement Award for a scholar who has done great work in and around Vermont over the course of their career. That's going to be presented by Giovanna Peebles, Sarah Dopp, Jeffrey Marshall, and Nicholas Muller III. So that's our agenda. Now we're going to start by, and I want to remind people also that following this event here, on this Facebook page, we're going to move to a Zoom event, and there's the link, and the link will also be over here, I think, in the public comments. And please, please join us there. That way we'll get to see all of you, all of your faces, and we can raise a glass to each other, toasting this year that we've had and our variety of award winners. So that will be from 6 to 7, following our regular annual meeting here from 5 to 6. Okay, but we're going to start, Brianna, if you would, next slide, with talking about some of the things that have happened in the center over the past year, give you an update on that. As a reminder, the mission of the Center for Research on Vermont is to support research in the Vermont laboratory, research that provides original knowledge to the world through examining the state's social, economic, cultural, and physical environment. And we do this work by engaging students, coordinating a network of scholars, and supporting research activities and storytelling programs, events, and conferences. Next slide. Core to everything we do is engaging students. This is a photo of some of the students who were involved last year at last year's annual meeting, standing on the porch of Waterman Manor. And we're unable to take a photo of the students who are involved this year, but again, it's 20 to 25 students working on a variety of center projects. And I'm going to highlight a few of them and even introduce a few of them over the course of the next 10 or 15 minutes. Next slide. Engaging scholars. We do that through hosting events and conferences and meetings. This is David Massell, the director of the Canadian Studies program at UVM, who we've partnered with on a number of projects, and Musa Ishak Peterson, and another student or scholar. Next slide. Also at the Waterman Manor. Over the last few years, the center has been supporting what we call research fellows. Fellows receive access to UVM resources, collaborate, and work with our students. And this is Stephen Terry, who for the last couple of years has been a research fellow working on a book, and a little more on that later, about Senator Aiken. Next slide. Again, on the Engaging Scholars, we have a research newsletter that's meant to highlight any interesting research that's happening around Vermont. Every couple of weeks, if you have ideas or suggestions for that newsletter, please send them along. Next slide. And conferences and events. This is a photo from every 2 years we've been hosting a conference with the Canadian Studies program, looking at issues related to Vermont and Quebec, and looking forward to doing that again in the future. But also, next slide, smaller meetings and events like this annual meeting. And here is Kristen Peterson-Ishak, who for technology reasons is not here, but she is here, so to speak. And I want to thank her for her 30 years or so of service to the center. And leading the applause there is Margaret Tamalonis, who for 5 or 6 years served as the chair of the center and was such a steady influence on us. So shout out to you too, Margaret. Next slide. And so still in this category of the types of things we do, recognize Vermont scholars and researchers. Here's Gregory Sanford, who for many years was the state archivist, and Paul Gillis, written a legal scholar, written many interesting books about Vermont's legal history. And of course, Giovanna Peebles, who you will actually see later in this presentation, winning the Lifetime Achievement Award a couple of years ago. Next slide. Because we can't do events like that in person, we have been moving to increasingly doing things online like this. And every Wednesday, we're hosting a conversation with a researcher or somebody in Vermont doing this kind of work. Here's Susan McClure of the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum. And I think next Wednesday, we're talking to Mary Wesley of Vermont Folk Life. So consider joining us noon on Wednesdays. Next slide. And we have a number of people we collaborate that really helps the center meet our objective of supporting Vermont research and Vermont scholars. I mentioned the Vermont Folk Life, Vermont Historical Society, a key and important partner in the work that we do, and the Vermont Humanities Council. We're hoping to contribute. We are contributing to these podcasts they now have called The Portable Humanist. And then many other collaborators and stakeholders across the state, including many of you, the members of the center that really make us run. And of course, across UVM, the land grant mission of the university to do good work and to support Vermonters. So many departments and colleges that we get to work with at UVM. Next slide. And internships, increasingly part of my job as the center's director has been also to coordinate internships in the college with Sophia Trigg, who we'll hear from in a minute. And over the last couple of years, we are supporting 200 or 300 internships college-wide and university-wide. Next slide. And one of the ways that we started doing that this semester with the College of Arts and Sciences, under the umbrella of the College of Arts and Sciences, is something called Communities of Practice, where leaders who are involved in a field then supervise or work directly with 5 or 6 interns. So one step from an intern placed outside the university to an intern working in a cohort with other interns. So Liz Raddock there helped us develop this something around legislative internships. Kate Cross on strategic communications, Lisa Scolati on reporting and documentary storytelling, and Eliza and Janet Franz on a community health internship program. Next slide, and I'll talk more about those here in a minute. So one of those was called the Legislative Internship Service Center, and we had 25 students working in the Vermont legislature until it came to an abrupt halt, although many of them were able to keep going. What an excellent experience for students. Many of UVM students aren't from Vermont, to participate in a citizens legislature and work directly with legislators who have no professional staff. Next slide. And I mentioned this briefly, but the Lisa Scolati there helped us start something called the Committee News Service, which is reporting, students doing reporting for local community papers. And all of the work is published locally, and it feeds this news hole, this need that we have for local news that's been hampered by the economy and what's happened with newspapers, and it gives students a really great applied learning experience. Next slide. And all of this is around this concept of storytelling, podcasts and video. And we have been lucky to really be able to grow that. And next slide, please. Part of that has been a new minor at UVM in reporting and documentary storytelling, which is housed in the center. So it's a minor in reporting and documentary storytelling. And I just want to give a shout out here to Leah, and hopefully Leah might even be here, and we will just say, so Leah is a student who has been super involved in reporting and documentary storytelling and has really, really inspired other students to do the same and produce 5, 6, 8, 10 podcasts that are well worth listening to. Leah, thanks for joining us. You're muted. Oh, can't hear you. That's okay. Anyway, I highly recommend go listen to some of Leah's podcasts. They're terrific. Next slide. And the leader of our digital media team is Eliza Giles, and her work is really terrific. And behind all the scenes of all the stuff that the center does in our newsletter and our social media is Eliza. Eliza might even be here online. Let's just say hello to her if she is here and thank her for her good work, Eliza. And there, well, hi.
Oh, is it working?
Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you for being such a big part of all the storytelling. Anything you want to say to the members and friends of the center at large?
I think just we have such a great expansive directory of scholars and experts to feature in podcasts and videos, and it's just been amazing to have allow students to also engage with that. So thank you.
All right, so go listen to some of Eliza's pieces if you have time on YouTube and on the Mud Season podcast. Next slide. So, and then one other thing that I want to give a quick shout out to is this sustainable transportation planning, which has been part of our communities of practice. Great student interest. We might have had 10 student interns this spring, and we have another 10 working this summer. Really not just about advocacy around this issue, but also the research around what it might take to reduce how car dependent we are and where Vermont can go in the future as we think about our compact village settlement patterns in the rural parts of Vermont. And I want to just recognize Jack Hansen, if he's there, for his work in this, leading this practice. Jack?
Hey, everyone. Thanks. Yeah, it was great working with Richard. An awesome opportunity, and I'm excited to continue working with Richard and another great group of students that we've got joining us this summer.
So lots of student interest in sustainable transportation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so stay tuned for that. We, Jack, and thank you, Jack, for your good work. But people can check out some of that work at the blog site, website, Sustainable Transportation Vermont. All right, next slide. Where are we? So remember, we have our awards to come, our key award, the Lifetime Achievement Award, and I'm just walking through some of the activities of the center over the past year. Act 1, Brianna. So one of the key things that we did is working with Steve Terry and a couple of students produce this book, Say We Won and Get Out. So a shout out to Steve. This book builds on some of his scholarship and research, but also weaves in his own personal experiences working for Senator Aiken. And the book tells the story of Aiken's evolving views on the Vietnam War. Next slide. Key to that book and to that research was the work of a student named Augeri, This is actually Lewis's second book with the center. He was very involved with this book, The Sam Hand, with Kevin Graffinino and Nick Muller and Kristen Peterson-Ishak. So, Lewis, what's next for you? 2 books already and you haven't graduated.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate to work with some great historians and scholars, all involved with the center. Steve Terry, I owe a great debt of gratitude to for my work on the Aiken book and the experience that I had there. And then Nick Muller and Kevin Graffinino and Chris Ishak. I mean, all of those people and many more in the center have provided me with an unforgettable experience at the University of Vermont. I don't think I could have gotten it anywhere else. So it's been a great pleasure, and still working on stuff. So never ending.
All right. Well, thank you, Lewis.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's hope to see you at the reception. A reminder, everybody, from 6 to 7, we hope to see you all, if you can join us on the Zoom part of this. So next slide, if you would. Lewis has 2 books under his belt, and I think Mr. Muller there has pulled him into helping with a third. One of the big successes really we had this spring was producing more videos than we've ever done, telling stories of researchers, and that was led by Sam. Sam, if you're here, join us. But we might have done 20 or 25 videos. Sam, what's next for you?
Hoping to continue the sort of work that I got to do at the research. Yeah, producing these short form videos, sort of doing this local research and networking that way has been a really amazing experience for me these last 2 semesters. And we sort of were able to coalesce a group of video students doing the work together. So that was really nice. So yeah, this last semester has been full of teamwork and some really great work. And you can check out it. We just did a whole YouTube series, so you can check out a bunch of different playlists there. But yeah, I really appreciate all the opportunities I got to have from the center and from the people I got to meet working there.
Thank you, Sam, and thanks and thanks for your good work. We never produced that many videos, and having a team leader like Sam made such a difference. All right, next slide, Brianna. Oops, go back one. Okay, so behind the scenes here, creating this whole new digital interface and way of thinking about things is Brianna Jassett. And Brianna will join us here. There she is. There's a photo there of Brianna testifying before the legislature, but thank you for your good work this semester.
Yeah, thank you for having the opportunity, for giving me the opportunity to work with you and Jack and everything.
And I think it's particularly ironic that Brianna is managing all this. She'll soon be back in Burlington, but remember, we've had this pandemic and we've all gone to our homes, and Brianna is managing all of this from
my hometown in Newton, Massachusetts.
Yeah. Thank you, Brianna. We'll see you again. All right, back to my slides, a few more. So normally we would give all these students and others a thank you gift from Wolfgang Meter's fabulous book, Talk Less and Say More, Vermont Proverbs, but I will put that in the mail to all of you and the other students who are so involved this semester and past semester. Thank you. Next slide. And lastly, Sophia Trigg. Sophia, for the last couple of years, has been a coordinator, a key part of the center in so many ways, and has recently been promoted. Hi, Sophia, to a new title, Experiential Learning Coordinator, which takes all the internship works that she does and, helps the College of Arts and Sciences really keep moving forward on giving students applied and real experiences.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been an amazing few years. I'm not going far, but it'll be nice to sort of get those students to you now instead of working with the students with you at the same time. But it's just been great to see students get involved both with research and with internships at the center, and then stepping out into internships in the community as well. So thank you for everything that you do as well. And we'll keep working together. Don't worry.
Don't go far.
Nope, I'll be in Cass. Not far at all.
All right. Anyway, thank you, Sophia, for all your good work. All right, Brianna, next slide. So folks may or may not know this, but we have been super lucky to be given beautiful spaces. In fact, Connie Gallagher is to be thanked for that. I know because he wrote the center into Billings years ago, and it happened. And this past year, we moved into really, really nice offices on the top floor of Billings, which has given us the ability also to expand some of these other projects that you've heard about. And I also want to thank Special Collections. They're in the building. They have beautiful space and just such an extensive library of Vermont resources and research. Next slide. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about our budget and fundraising. The center is given a budget of $10,000 a year from the College of Arts and Sciences. And we've been able to supplement that budget with fundraising. And many of you, members and others, have been really generous with your support for the center, and I want to thank you. And this year we received the largest gift that the center's ever received. Chris may correct me, but from Gary Shattuck and his wife, Kate. Gary is pictured here with Jeff Marshall, but thank you, Gary and Kate, for that really generous contribution that allows the center to keep doing this kind of work. Next slide. And I also want to give a big thank you to Nick Muller and his wife, Cheryl, who have added the center to their will and made a substantial legacy gift that will help the center in the years forward. And as folks may know, Nick is a co-founder of the center. So 1974-ish, and there he is. Thank you, Mr. Muller.
You're welcome.
And we will hear from you again soon because Nick will be giving the Lifetime Achievement Award to a former graduate student of his, I believe.
Absolutely. Looking forward.
All right, but thank you really and Carol, for the gift that you made to the center. All right, next slide. So that's about concluding what I'm going to say, and we're going to turn to the awards here in a minute, but it is a really challenging time for UVM and higher education in general. Folks may know, but the president of the university has said that the university's budget deficit is in the tens of millions of dollars, and it's possible that we would have less students this fall as parents think about keeping their students closer to home. And UVM, of course, 3/4 of our students are not from Vermont. On the other hand, we, I think, continue to do really great work supporting students in this Vermont laboratory in so many ways. We have really strong support from the dean and the staff and leadership in the College of Arts and Sciences. That's been critical to the center. Strong support at the university level, but especially at the college level. And we're just going to keep engaging students in telling stories about Vermont research and connecting researchers. So I want to thank everybody for your support for the center. And now we're going to move to our awards. And I'm going to introduce Sherry Morse, and here with Sherry is a photo of Prudence Doherty. So just thank you and Special Collections. Dr. Morse is a human geographer at the University of Vermont. She thinks deeply about Vermont, has published all kinds of interesting research about Vermont. And we are going to turn this over to her now to talk about the student awards and introduce the couple of students who've won these top awards. So thank you for being here, Sherry. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Richard. And kudos to you and Sophia and Brianna and all the other students who have made this possible. and it's really lovely to see folks' familiar names in the public chat. So welcome, everyone. It is so exciting to announce this year's Research Award recipients. The first award is the Green Mountain Summer Research Award. It is relatively new. And Richard has done such an excellent job of advocating for research funds for undergraduate students. So thank you for that, Dr. Watts. This particular award funds an undergraduate student $4,000 during the summertime to conduct research that in some way relates to or enhances our understanding of Vermont. And this year, the award goes to Alexander Nacarto. He's a wildlife biology major in the Rubenstein School of Earth and Environment at UVM. The title of his research project is The Movement of Walleye in Lake Champlain, and he is working with Professor Ellen Marsden, who is in the Wildlife and Fisheries Biology Department in Rubenstein. So many congratulations to both Alexander and Dr. Marsden, and we wish them great success in their research, and we look forward to hearing back their findings and results. The second big announcement is the recipient of the George Bryan Award. Professor Bryan was a professor of the theater department, and he was also a former director of the Center for Research on Vermont. And this award recognizes outstanding research or sort of theoretical papers that were conducted during a semester-long course. And this year's recipient is Mr. Samuel Blair, who hails from Massachusetts, but lives just down the road in Charlotte now.
Hi, Sherry.
Sam's paper, hi, Sam. Sam's paper was titled Habitus in the Sugar Bush, Theorizing Cultural Landscapes and the More Than Human, which sounds like a really fancy title. And it is a really fancy title, and it did impressive theoretical work to take a theory from a French philosopher and apply it to one maple sugar tree in one particular forest in southern Vermont. And it really was an outstanding piece of work, and we are really impressed by your scholarship, Sam, and we offer you tremendous congratulations.
Thank you, Sherry.
You have to say some things now, Sam.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I guess I wanted to say thank you so much to you, Sherry, for your support. It's meant a lot at every stage in the process. And I wanted to say thanks also to the center for promoting such diverse kinds of inquiry into space and what it means. I think that work is more and more important as we live in this increasingly precarious world. And I think that trying to understand how humans and nature are interrelated and actually don't exist independently of each other at all is really important work. So that's what I tried to do in this paper, and I look forward to doing more of it. Did you catch that?
Great. Thank you, Sam, and congrats again. Okay. The final student award for the evening and for the year is the prestigious Andrew E. Newquist Award. Dr. Newquist was a political scientist, and this award goes to the student who has done exemplary research on a Vermont topic over a year-long project. This year's recipient is Ms. Lucia Posel. Lucia is a graduating senior in the geography department at UVM. She hails from both Minneapolis, Minnesota, and also Wisconsin. Her work, her thesis is titled Landscapes of Care Amid Crisis, Vermont's Response to the Opioid Epidemic. Lucia's research was really multidisciplinary. So she started out her thesis focusing on doing 12 oral histories with leaders in the harm reduction field, those folks that have worked in various ways in to sort of meet the opioid crisis in Vermont. And then she took those oral histories and kind of went backwards with them. And she used the wonderful treasure chest of resources in special collections at UVM to then conduct a historical analysis of Vermont's long history of opioid addiction and struggle, which dates back more than 100 years in our state. And so she both uncovered fresh voices and perspectives on a problem, and as well as sort of some really troubling and deep roots on that same problem. So Lucia's work has been really well received. She has won other awards for her work as a service learning teaching assistant, as a scholar who's focused on social justice issues, and I'm very happy to present her to all of you as our Newquist Award winner for 2020.
Thank you, Sherry. And like Sam, I want to say a special thanks to you. You've been my advisor for 4 years, and you're also Sam's professor, and you've gotten us this far. So thank you very much. And I also want to thank the center, because I was the recipient actually last year for the Green Mountain Scholar Award, which allowed me to do all of those oral histories and spend the summer traveling around the state, meeting with harm reduction practitioners and doctors in all corners of Vermont. And I just want to say, I hope that this project continues. I only on my own was able to conduct 12 oral histories, and I hope that with this project being placed in special collections, I can continue this work and really grow this project to hear and include more Vermont voices. So thank you everyone very much. I'm very honored.
And we hope to see both of you on campus at some point, Lucia, for your graduation, and Sam back in class again in the fall. And so now it is my pleasure to introduce the next introducer. Giovanna Peebles has performed tremendous service for the state of Vermont in her 37 years as the state archaeologist. She is also an esteemed recipient of the Center for Research on Vermont's Lifetime Achievement Award, and she is here to do her own introduction. So welcome, Giovanna.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. So I'm here in Montpelier. I am very excited to see many old friends who have joined us on Facebook. And I got to tell you, I love Facebook. I love social media. So I'm delighted that there's a bunch of us elders that are doing this, because it's a fantastic tool. Today, we're here to celebrate some wonderful scholars, young and not so young, who've made important contributions to our understanding of Vermont. Before we move to celebrating Kevin Graffinino, this year's winner of the Center's Lifetime Achievement Award, I'm going to spend a minute telling you about this award. I'm pretty sure Richard asked me to do this because my mother, Maria Franca Morselli, was the first winner of this award in 2002. Mom was a University of Vermont professor of botany, a legendary maple researcher, and a pioneer activist and feminist with great courage and integrity. My mother set the gold standard for the other 18 award winners, I think, at least. I'm going to quickly tell you who they are, since you may never look at the center's website, but I hope we certainly hope that you do look at our website. So here are the past 18 Lifetime Achievement Award winners. Sam Hand, Betty Bandel, Lillian Baker Carlisle, Bill Haviland, an enormous mentor to me, was archaeologist at UVM, Weston Kate, Esther Monroe Swift, John Duffy, Hub Fogelman, Greg Sanford, Jane Beck, Fred Schmidt, who I think is right here on Facebook with us, Frank Bryan, Michael Sherman, Connie Gallagher, Nick Muller, Chris Peterson Ishak, and Paul Gillis. These extraordinary Vermonters are the giants on whose shoulders we'll stand as we look to the past and try to figure out our future. As described in the center's website, these people have created enduring, significant, and positive influences on Vermont. They've inspired us with their productivity. These people, are ridiculously productive. They never stop working. Their hard work and energy just is mind-numbing. But they're not only legends, they are our mentors, our peers, and among our oldest and dearest friends. As Paul Gillies said in 2019 when he accepted the Lifetime Achievement Award, this is a big prize. It's a big deal. Kevin Graffinino richly deserves it. But before I turn the screen over to Nick Muller, who will introduce Kevin, I want to mention 2 letters that Richard received about Kevin. The first letter was from Jeff Marshall, director of the Silver Special Collection Library at the University of Vermont, and I think Jeff is on Facebook with us right now, watching live. Jeff nominated Kevin for the 2020, also the 20th, by the way, Lifetime Achievement Award. Jeff said that many historians have made lasting contributions to the study of Vermont through writing, teaching, lecturing, or leading historical societies in Vermont and across the nation. But few have done all of these things, and none have done them quite so well as Kevin Graffinino. Sarah Dopp cannot join us tonight, but she wanted to share a few thoughts about Kevin. Sarah is honorary trustee of the Vermont Historical Society and served as president during Kevin's tenure as president of the VHS. She offers him her heartiest congratulations and gives us a tiny glimpse into Kevin's remarkable contributions. Sarah reminds us that before Kevin became the grown-up, brilliant historian, he was the boy wonder of the Vermont antiquarian book world as early as high school. I'm pleased to introduce Nicholas Muller, an old friend of mine who never looks old himself.
Yeah.
You're gonna always be the youngest kid in the room, Nick. Himself a shining light in Vermont history. He has authored, co-authored, and edited so many Vermont history publications. There aren't enough numbers to count them. Nick, turn this over to you. Nice seeing you.
Thank you, Giovanna. Is Kevin going to get on the screen, Brianna? So I can embarrass him? There he is.
Sure.
Kevin, this should be an occasion to celebrate with a room full of colleagues, with friends, with fellow historians, with bibliophiles, center members, student award winners, and especially Leslie, who I hope where she can hear, even though you can't see her. We're doing this remotely, as opposed to remotely doing it, because the center needs to go on. It needs to keep its presence as a living and strengthening organization. It needed to have this meeting, even though we couldn't get together and praise you and the others individually. But when you and Leslie return to Vermont, when the virus allows you to sell your house in Michigan, there will be many of us look forward to a second celebration in person. I titled this part, "The Fib That Worked." Since my own experience in the Vermont's past began with a mild fib, so did yours. Kevin, at the age of 6, moved to Montpelier, and he spent a lot of his time there exploring the cultural advantages of Montpelier. Waterman Wood, the Historical Society, the museum, Admiral Dewey's home, began to develop those cultural instincts. He also read voraciously, and I've learned that he learned speed reading at 3,600 words a minute. He read enough, probably needed it. Lots of book reports, violating the Kellogg-Hubbard Library's rules against borrowing a book and returning the same day for another one. I guess that's why 3,600 words works. Dreaming of athletic prowess until he grew out a knee and he moved to Williston and did his last 3 years of high school at Champlain Valley Union School. He was admitted to UVM, but had no money. He went to Fletcher Free Library and he started to read. And he read books about books and books about selling books, buying and selling. And he formed the J.K. Gravigno Book Company. Launched an advertisement, I assume in the Free Press, and had his first caller, a woman who lived in Morrisville on a farm where she raised pork. She answered the ad. Kevin went to visit her. He asked her what she was interested in. She said she'd like to specialize in Vermont history. And that's when Kevin answered, I want to specialize in Vermont history. And in this case, a trite phrase, quote, the rest was history, close quote, was actually accurate as Kevin turned a very gentle fib into a business and into a future. J. Kevin Gravigno books put him through UVM, undergraduate and graduate school. He had a solid academic career. He completed the major requirements in both English and history, but gravitated more toward history. That's where I met him first as an undergraduate, then as a graduate student, supervised his master's thesis, and he worked 1 year with me as a graduate assistant teaching Vermont history. At that time, I visited his place, I think on Orchard Terrace.
Yes.
And I met the ancient cat Woozer.
Yes.
And Kevin and Leslie love cats, and cats love them. And I expect maybe one will jump on the table behind him. Kevin was it's been a phenomenal publishing record. In late 1977, I assumed the role of editor of Vermont history. And then I left very shortly thereafter, a month or two, to go to New London, New Hampshire, as president of Colby Sawyer College. But that didn't interrupt the relationship with Kevin. I counted Kevin. Between 1978 and when I left for Wisconsin in 1985, I published in Vermont history 10 of your articles. That's a remarkable record. And you were also publishing other places. Kevin has a long bibliography. That itself would qualify him for a Lifetime Achievement Award if there were nothing else in his resume and in his activities. But there's quite a bit more. He published about Vermont history. The range of publication is really critical. About literary figures, articles on Sinclair Lewis, Walter Hard, and the arts, architecture of Congdon, and with Leslie, an article for Antiques Magazine on Thomas Waterman Wood. whose work he saw first exploring in Montpelier. He published maps, the Chambers Atlas of Lake Champlain, published by a company he set up with two partners that you really ran. Published on bibliography, historiography, on printing. His honors thesis, U of M, was on the Dresden Press. Published on books, paper treasures, railroads, and in 1993 received a PhD from the University of Massachusetts with a biography of Ira Allen, who Kevin once told me, I find Ira more interesting than his older brother, Ethan. And he also parlayed that into articles in the most prestigious national historical journals, particularly the William and Mary Quarterly. He went to Wisconsin in 1995 as director of a huge library. I think it probably had as many volumes in one topic, North American history, as it was then Bailey Howell Library had in total. But while he was there, he continued to publish about Vermont. He worked with John Duffy on the collected works of Ira Allen and his siblings, 2 volumes with the University Press in New England. He left Wisconsin after 4 years, went to Kentucky as director of the Kentucky Historical Society. Got a little tired of the clan system there and came back after exploring the Oregon Historical Society, New Hampshire Historical Society, and came back to Vermont, where he continued to produce. In 2009, I knew it was going to happen when his former mentor and my friend, Mark McCorrison, who'd run the American Antiquarian Society for 30 years,
yes,
was on the board search committee at the William L. Clements Library at the University of Michigan, one of the top libraries in its topic, early American history in the world. I knew that if that were waved in front of him, and they wanted him, he would go in an nanosecond. Since he's left Vermont, went to Wisconsin, Kentucky, back to Vermont, and to Michigan, he has participated in, edited, or has written 16 or 17 books. Remarkable. And he once told me that the one he regarded the best on that list, or at the very top, would be the Vermont Difference, published in 2014. A book that he conceived of after speaking on Mount Mansfield in one of those posh restaurants to a group of university presidents of New England about what Vermont had been able to do and achieve. And he walked away thinking that Vermont had a whole lot to say, not only for itself, but for the nation. He conceived of that book. He really ran it. And we published a really fine book. He gave me the opportunity to write the introduction. David Donath, our friend, was a participant, as was 2 years ago winner of the, not winner, really recipient is the word I prefer, the Lifetime Achievement Award, Chris Peterson-Ishak. And I recommend that book to you all. But as he continued to publish, it didn't stop there. He exhibited, grew into many other talents. At Special Collections at UVM, where he worked for 17 years, he began to get around Vermont speaking. Maybe he'll tell you about his first talk. When I lined it up to speak at the annual meeting of the Vermont Historical Society,
No.
and he's told me that he was frightened, nervous,
Terrified.
but he did a good job. He made presentations around the state. As he worked for the Wilbur Vermontiana collection, he was cultivating donors, collectors, who had things that he thought belonged in that collection ultimately. He was asked to do other administrative tasks. He became a trustee of the Vermont Historical Society. Served on the Center for Research in Vermont committees. He served on the board with his friend Art Cohen at the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum. The two of them agreed that they didn't have a career, they had a calling. And I think you did, Kevin. Served on the committee for New England Bibliography, University of Vermont, and New England Phi Beta Kappa work. Then he left, well, he developed also a talent for fundraising. I think he may have been the first individual to raise funds for special collections by arranging book sales. When he took over as director of the Vermont Historical Society, 6 weeks after being there, the person, Ginger Baker, the late Ginger Baker, who handled the finances, talked to Kevin and said, "We have $1.5 million budget." Kevin said, "That sounds good." She said, "But I have less than half of that in revenue to pay for it." That did not make Kevin's day. That's when he came to Essex and recruited me to rejoin the board. I'd first been a member of in 1971. But what did Kevin manage to do? He managed to secure the single largest donation to the Vermont Historical Society by an individual, a $1 million gift. And that really staunched the bleeding as the society worked with that problem. But then he was lured to Ann Arbor, which I would say was a dream job for Kevin. And he raised money there incredibly. One story is that he was told he'd be lucky to get a few $1,000s from a foundation. And he came home with $6 million. And that was followed by 2 8-figure gifts for the endowment of the Clements. He can raise money. And right now, I think he's ready, if the University of Vermont will turn him loose, to raise money for the Center for Research on Vermont. Kevin also proved he can run an operation. He ran serious operations in Wisconsin, in Kentucky, in Vermont, in Michigan. That never would have happened if the University of Vermont had done what Charlie Morrissey wanted them to do. When Sam Hand retired, Kevin, really the resident expert in Vermont's past, wanted to replace him as the member of the history department specializing in Vermont. That didn't work. Charlie Morrissey read a piece, and I think I'll spare you that this evening, Kevin. But he essentially said that it was lucky for Wisconsin to have Kevin But to not have him at the University of Vermont was a tragedy. He said it much more colorfully than that on WDEV radio. The 2020 recipient of the Center for Research on Vermont Lifetime Achievement Award, J. Kevin Graffinino, is no one-dimensional individual. He's run business successfully enough to put himself through UVM as an undergraduate and a graduate student. He lost J. Kevin Graffinino books when he went to work for the Wilbur, the Special Collections, and John Beekler, a neighbor of mine and one of Kevin's mentors, said, "Kevin, don't you have a conflict of interest problem selling books to where you work?" Well, Kevin was naive about that, as I was when I was reproducing articles for Vermont history class, blithely unaware of copyrights and permissions. He has a varied and long and formidable publications record. He can and he has run major institutions. He can raise money with a Midas touch. And at 65 years old, newly retired, he will not quit. He's got many years and much productivity ahead of him. Kevin, I'm proud to call you my friend. Now going nearly a half century. In those decades, we've gone our separate ways. But our paths always managed to weave back in me. At UVM, with Vermont history, edited in a New Hampshire publishing, doing his work, his coming to join me in Wisconsin, my returning to the VHS board during his directorship, and 2 books we've worked on together during his Michigan sojourn, and now another one underway as we talk. In those decades, Kevin, the tide has turned. The old man who was your mentor is now an old man who looks up to you the way I think he once looked up to me. So, Kevin, may I be the first to offer you congratulations as recipient of the Center's Lifetime Achievement Award. That's when a room full of people should be on their feet cheering.
Leslie's standing up over in the corner, clapping. Thank you, Nick. Couple of things off of Nick's intro. On the publishing a lot, when I was a UVM undergraduate in the classics department, Brady Gilliland told me that he thought Graffinino might derive from early Italian for little scribbler. I did my best to live up to that. 1976 VHS first talk of my life was the most terrifying experience of my existence. I thought I was going to have a heart attack and die, and I welcomed the possibility so that I wouldn't have to finish the damn talk. And on budget deficits, my mentor, Dr. Muller, once told me anybody can manage when there is enough money. Try to manage when your business manager comes in and tells you we're 40% short on the budget that starts in 5 weeks. And that'll make your day. That made the VHS experience was challenging. Some prepared remarks, which I'll keep brief here. This event calls to mind a VHS annual meeting of about 30 years ago, at which Sam Hand got the annual achievement award from the VHS. And I teased Sam beforehand. I told him that I was congratulating him on ascending to the rank of Golden Geezer, which I felt the award signified. Now, I'm now several years older than Sam was when he got that award, and I figure he's looking down on me now, sipping his Jack Daniels and smiling over my getting my smart aleck comeuppance this evening. It has all gone by in a flash, but I've spent most of my adult life working on and in Vermont. Jobs at UVM, the Vermont Historical Society, boards of museums, libraries, cultural organizations around the state. I've spoken in more than half the towns in Vermont. I've kept moderately busy, I think, in various aspects of research on Vermont. And I haven't always been in Vermont the past quarter century, but I hope I've always been of Vermont, no matter where I resided. And in all of that activity, the Center for Research on Vermont has been an integral part of my Green Mountain curatorial, research, teaching, collecting, and publishing work. I was a UVM student when the center got started. So my memories of the CRV go back to Sam Hand, Nick Muller, Gary Nelson, Chris Peterson as SOC, George Bryan, and the others who built and sustained the center in the 1970s and 80s. I spoke at CRV events and conferences. I wrote for some CRV publications, and I served on the board while I was curator of the Wilbur Collection of Vermontiana between 1978 and 1995. Stayed connected to the center during my wanderings in the wilderness in Wisconsin, Kentucky, and out here in Michigan. I'm told I'm the 20th recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award, and I'm proud of that. I really am. I've known almost all of the previous 19 recipients as teachers, as colleagues, and as friends, and they're a distinguished group, and I'm very proud that I'm joining them. Always regarded the center as a model unit that all other flagship state universities in America should try to imitate on their campuses. I think that research on, teaching about, service to Vermont is crucial to UVM's mission, and the center is a key part of UVM being the University of Vermont, not just a university in Vermont. What's been missing at the CRV throughout its existence, in my opinion, is adequate funding to allow the center to expand its programs and services and really turn the potential it has always had into the performance it can and should achieve. I know that in these days of severe fiscal challenges, there is no chance that the university can suddenly give the center a six-figure operating budget out of some mysterious pot of discretionary money. But as a fair number of you have heard me say 100 or 200 times, I am absolutely certain that there are alumni, Vermonters, and others, prospective donors out there who would support the center if UVM would ask them. I hope that someday Waterman and the UVM Foundation will make an effort to test my theory that we could build an 8-figure endowment for the center if we just get out there and ask folks who might donate to UVM's Vermont work but are not going to give to anything else at the university, and ask them if they'd support an initiative like an endowment for CRV. I look at the center's membership list and I see a fair number of retirees who were successful fundraisers in our careers. And I hope UVM will enlist some of us to work with the foundation on that important goal. In the meantime, those of us who have made it into our, shall we say, golden years, which I think is a pretty fair percentage of the CRV roster, can play a role as well. Few of us are independently wealthy, I'm sorry to say, but I'd wager that most of us could make some kind of a bequest or other planned gift to the center's endowment. I'm not saying you have to disinherit the children or the grandchildren, Although as someone who's blessedly child-free, I certainly wouldn't object to your doing so. But something in your estate for the CRV would build a better future for the center. So go see your lawyers tomorrow, send Richard a copy of the paperwork, and let's hope that our collective show of support, building on the Muller gift, the Shattuck gift, will energize the university to do its part by making the 7- and 8-figure asks on the center's behalf that I think have been entirely lacking in the past 4.5 decades. Enough editorializing. Thank you, my friends, for the award and for this evening. Golden Geezer is out. Richard, Brianna, back to you.
Thank you. And thank you, Paula and Giovanna, and all those other people who are so kind and gracious to spend an hour remotely, virtually, doing what we so much want to do in person. I so agree with Nick. I look forward to doing this, you know, when we can all see each other. But, so congratulations, Kevin, and thank you for the, you know, kind words about the center and strong support that all of you have evidenced in so many ways. So we would love it if people would join us for a moment right now on this Zoom link where we can actually all see each other and we can do something that we cannot do in Waterman or have not been able to do, and that is to actually pour a glass of wine or whatever we would like and just take a minute and think and recognize all the hard work that everybody has done this year. So without any more, I really do invite you to come over to the Zoom link if you can. And thank you again to everybody for participating in this, and Brianna for being behind the scenes and making it work. See you soon, I hope, in some way or other.